welcome to Long Sky's gear. This is going to be the third fuzz installment, and instead of looking at different kinds of fuzz pedals, I thought I'd have a bit of an in-depth look at my particular favourite, most used pedal, and that is the 2010 Dunlop Silicon Jimi Hendrix Fuzz Face reissue, which is a faithful reproduction of the kinds of fuzz pedals that Hendrix used basically from 66 until 1970, beginning with the germanium fuzz and then progressing, I think, in 68 or 69 to the higher gain silicon circuits. The fuzz face itself, a brief history, you can see from one of the inset photographs that this particular pedal, rather than use surface mount or micro boards with the latest technology, it sticks to more of a 60s tech with discrete components, separate transistors, separate resistors. So it's, and there isn't even a mains, there isn't an option for an external power adapter. It's battery only. So it's real old school in that sense. But the fuzz face was developed really by looking at the Solar Sound tone bender circuit, and what they did, they dropped a transistor, simplified the circuit, and the iconic circular shape was based on a microphone stand, and that's makes it very sort of distinguishable from many other fuzz face, finished in that hammerite. So yeah, it's an interesting kind of fuzz because although the silicon is higher gain and it has a more fizzy top end, I still feel that it's on the ragged side of overdrive, and that makes it, for me at least, quite versatile. In the opening jams there, what we saw was riffs and rhythms using this Hagstrom with humbuckers, semi-acoustic guitar, and we heard it roaring there. I had most of the fuzz turned up, and it's a distinct, obvious fuzz tone. What I'd like to do now is take it through a comparison, so that I'll compare this Hagstrom with the humbuckers with a P-90 Les Paul and a single coil Telecaster, and we'll hopefully hear some of the contrasts of using different types of guitar, different types of pickups with the fuzz pedal. So hopefully there we heard some tonal differences between the three guitars. But I mean, generally what happens with any kind of electric guitar, if you increase the gain to sufficient levels, they all begin to sound alike. So obviously a lot of the characteristics of a fully hollow jazz guitar like this, you lose them to an extent when you crank everything through a fuzz pedal and you've got those square waves and so on. But what I'll do now, I'll stick with the Hagstrom, and I'll demonstrate some of the interesting qualities of a fuzz face in the way that it cleans up. It cleans up because the circuit itself almost directly attaches to the guitar pickups. So the impedance of the guitar pickups are very, very important in this. There isn't any kind of buffering stage, and that means that it's very responsive to both picking dynamics or to individual adjustments of the guitar volume control. So if we take some kind of unaccompanied fuzz riffs next, and I'll put the fuzz face through a variety of guitar volume levels, and we can hear what effects it has. So beginning with, I'm going straight into the amplifier. I'm actually in the dirt channel because that gives me That gives me a master volume control. But you'll hear it's slightly overdriven there. But now I'll kick in. And hopefully what we heard there with those exaggerated picking dynamics, how responsive this combination of fuzz face and guitar, how it cleans up there with just a gentle touch, and then hammer it harder, and you get more fuzzy distortion. Another very sort of interesting quirk of the fuzz face, because the battery which is used is directly in line with the circuit. It means that the internal impedance of the battery has an effect on the tone, and that's why lots of fuzz face aficionados hunt down zinc oxide batteries rather than alkaline ones, because they have a different impedance circuit and it does affect the tone. So it's a good one if you like sort of rummaging through the discount pound stores looking for cheap PP9, is it PP9 batteries? Yeah, looking for those cheap 9-volt batteries, because allegedly they sound better than using the more expensive alkaline ones, which do last longer. Now, there are many ways to incorporate fuzz in your overdriven tone. Many of the pioneers in the late 60s and early 70s used the fuzz face as the sole source of overdrive, particularly if they were using, say, the high watt amplifiers that were very hi-fi and hard to overdrive. They would derive all their edge from the fuzz face, and then keep the amplifier as clean effectively. And I'm certainly thinking of some of the sounds and tones that we hear on Pink Floyd's Medal album. Many of the on Echoes, when you hear those overdriven sounds, the power chords and so on, it's pure fuzz face, probably silicon at that time, I think. Just switching over from the earlier albums which had germanium on there, but certainly it's all fuzz face that you hear. And then later in the 70s, David Gilmour acquired overdrive pedals too. I think he used a Color Sound overdriver, and he would combine some drive from the fuzz face plus what was effectively a silicon overdrive circuit. And I think, that's one way of doing it. Another way of doing it is to have your valve or your tube drive from the amplifier, and then use the contribution from fuzz face. So you're adding a kind of a silicon fuzz into an already overdriven amplifier. So those are different options. Personally, what I like to do, I would often, if I'm running an old school kind of rig, I'll have a clean tube amplifier and front load it with all the drive. So I will combine the silicon fuzz face with an overdrive, something like a tube screamer or that kind of thing, to tighten up the low end, tweak the mids a little bit, and just round things off so it's not on a pure sort of silicon square wave tone. And I think what I will do as an outro is add those pedals together, add the fuzz face, add a Green Rhino tube screamer, some delay, and yet again give an example of a vintage lead tone to take things out. So for this episode of Long Long Skies Gear, the Fuzz Face edition, it's goodbye for now.